This is the Deepal S05, the smallest and most affordable SUV in the Chinese brands range, and I'm here in China to tell you what it's like before it arrives towards the end of 2025. This one here is the range extender hybrid. There's also an EV which is definitely coming to Australia. Whether this one comes, well, we'll have to wait and see, but stick around and I'll tell you what you need to know about this SUV in this review. If you haven't already, please subscribe and ring the bell, and let's get to it. Full pricing and specifications for the S05 are still to be confirmed, but let me tell you, it's going to be cheaper than the S07. That's the plan at least, because it's a smaller model, doesn't necessarily have less spec and tech, but it is a slightly smaller car. So in theory, I would be expecting it to be in the $40,000 arena, probably the high 40s. And if you're wondering where it sits compared to the S07, the larger SUV, you'll find a link in the description of my review of that vehicle in Australia. You can see what I thought of it there. Now, it's going to come with heaps and heaps of standard tech, this car. Things like a 15.6-inch touchscreen media system. You've also got a big head-up display, wireless smartphone connectivity, a nice big panoramic sunroof, a 64-color ambient lighting system. You've also got 14-speaker stereo system, a smart key, an NFC and hidden handles, and an electric tailgate as well. And that's in addition to the LED lighting and the nice big alloy wheels fitted to this version. So I think it's going to be pretty good in terms of what you're getting for your cash. But let's talk about some alternatives that you might be considering before this one arrives. Okay, so if you're thinking you want a slightly smaller SUV that's fully electric, maybe go and have a look at the BYD Atto 3. I think it's still a very competitive vehicle in the market segment, and it's now seen a price cut. So it starts at less than 40 grand these days and ranges up to about 45 for the high grade version with a few more features. And I think it's really good value for money. It's a very well packaged little car, and thankfully it doesn't have as many annoying safety features as some of the other models in the market. Now, another one you might want to have a look at is the Geely EX5. It's just launched in Australia. I think it could be a really great choice if you're in the market for something brand new that looks and feels a little bit different to what else you could be considering. And finally, I would suggest it might be worth waiting for my review of the Kia EV3. I'll be driving it very, very soon, and I tell you what, I really think that it has its own place in the market to play. It looks fantastic. It's from a mainstream brand with a really good reputation in our market, so it could be worth waiting for that one. If you subscribe and hit the bell, you'll be notified when I do my review of that car. I can't wait for it. I think it's going to be really exciting. So as I said, the S07 sits above this vehicle, and this one is still not a small SUV. It looks smaller than it actually is, I think. At about 4.6 meters long, it's similar in size to a Kia EV5 in terms of the length, and it's got a nice long wheelbase as well. I'll put all the dimensions on your screen now so you can see for yourself. And I think it looks really quite good. If you're wondering what that strange little yellow thing on the back window is, that's your charge indicator, so you can see at a glance what's happening with your charging. And at the back, it does have, well, a slightly different kind of approach to the other Deepal model already on sale, but still with that illuminated emblem in the middle of the boot. Now, electric boot, so let's check it out and see what space there is inside. You might be surprised at how much space there is inside. Now, this isn't to an Australian spec, but it does give you an indication of what to expect. In there, you'll find the 12-volt battery, which is peculiar, and you've got a 12-volt port there. And underneath the floor, you won't find a spare wheel, unfortunately. This is not going to come with a spare, but that's not unusual in this market. There are a few things missing. You don't get shopping bag hooks on the side, and this particular car doesn't have a cargo cover, but that might come in the Australian models. Yeah, let's jump in and see what the interior is like. Okay, let's have a look at the interior of this S05 model, and honestly, it's very different. In this particular car, there's a lovely interior trim. Just have a look at some of the finishes on the inside of this vehicle. Some really interesting design elements with these yellow finishes on the seats, on the doors, and this two-tone blue and black finish really does have a fair bit of wow factor, I reckon. Now, it is one of those cars that doesn't have a instrument binnacle, so there's no screen in front of you here where you'd normally see your driving info, but there is a big head-up display that will show up on the windscreen there instead. And it is certainly something you'll have to get used to, but there is also a little digital instrument display there for your speedo. It also shows you what gear you've got selected and plenty of other little info bits there. Now that 15.6-inch screen really does take pride of place in this center console area, and I'm not going to do a deep dive on it yet because I can't really read what is happening on this screen, but it's very similar to the S07 in terms of the design here. So you do have temperature controls there, a fan controller as well, which you can use with the screen or by voice if you want to, and you've also got your seat controls too if you want to jump into your heating and ventilated seats for the front. So that's good to see. Electric seats as well, and plenty of other great features on this screen. Obviously, if it is very similar to the S07, it'll be pretty easy to get your head around because in that car, I managed to get my bearings relatively quickly. Now let's talk about some other amenities in this front seat area. So you've got a wireless charging pad there, 50 watts. You've got little hidden vents down there too. You've got more vents up here, thankfully, with manual controls to move them around rather than on screen. And there's some cup holders between the seats there, a decent sized center console bin, which is removable too, with plenty of space in there for loose items and so forth. So looking good so far. Let's have a look above. You've got illuminated vanity mirrors. You've got an SOS call button up there. So connected services standard. You've got an auto dimming rear vision mirror, which is good. And it seems pretty good in terms of the practicality as well. You've got a massive storage tray underneath this center bridge area. Some charge options down there too. Big bottle holders in the doors, and your door openers, that one there, a little bit of a strange design. Same with some of the other controls here that are a little bit peculiar. You've got your windows, which are back to front. So you push it forwards to put it down, pull it backwards to put it up. So a bit weird. Gear selector is on this side of the steering wheel. That will be carried over to Australia when the steering wheel's on the other side of the car. And you've also got a wiper and blinker switch there too. And there's some controls on here for your systems. So you've got your cruise control stuff there and some favorites, as well as your volume and media controls on that side. Nice looking steering wheel too, I reckon. All right, let's jump in the back seat and see what the space is like. Okay, so this seat is set for my driving position. I'm 182 centimeters or 6 foot tall, and just have a look. I've got plenty of space to move my feet and plenty of knee room, and it's not too much of a knees up position either. And when it comes to headroom, yeah, got heaps actually. It's a pretty accommodating backseat space. It's one thing the Chinese brands tend to understand better than some others in the market. Now you've also got some good amenities up here. You've got grab handles, there's a little light there too, and down here you'll find a vent, just the one directional vent. That seems to be a thing with some of the Chinese brands, which just gets on my nerves, because what if you've got two rear passengers with different temperature requirements? USB ports down there. There are no mat pockets on the seat backs, which is maybe a little bit of a disappointment, but you do get big bottle holders in the doors there and a flip down armrest with cup holders too. So pretty good in terms of the amenities in the back, and the seat comfort is very good too. ISO fixed points and 3 top tethers standard, and it's really a nice interior experience here. This feels premium, I would say. Under the bonnet of the electric versions of the S05, there will be a frunk, but not this one, because it's the range extender electric vehicle. So under that plastic shield, it has a 1.5 litre 4-cylinder petrol engine, which teams up with a 27 kilowatt hour LFP battery pack, and it has pretty much a good amount of grunt, 160 kilowatts, 320 newton meters, and it's rear wheel drive. Now it's a maybe for Australia. We'll have to wait and see, but I'll put some specs for the EV model on your screen now. The pure EV has 175 kilowatts, 320 newton meters, and it's rear wheel drive as well. And it's got 0 to 100 of 7.3 seconds. But there's also a dual motor all-wheel drive version coming potentially to Australia too, with 295 kilowatts, 5.5 seconds for that one. And it can tow as well, 1600 kg. The electric versions of the S05 are likely to come to Australia with a 68.6 kilowatt hour battery pack with a pretty decent amount of driving range, about 430 kilometers for all-wheel drive models if they come, and 470 for the rear-wheel drive, that's WLTP. Now let's talk about your charging stuff. So your charge port is on this side, in this particular market at least, and it has pretty decent AC charging capability, 7 kilowatts for the rear-wheel drive and 11 kilowatts for the all-wheel drive. That's based on some international specs. When it comes to DC charging, that's the good news here. 168 kilowatt DC charging capability, 30 to 80% in as little as 15 minutes. Now, this particular car is a range extender EV, but it still has AC and DC charging, and it has a 27.28 kilowatt hour battery pack, which is good for a range of 200 Ks of EV driving apparently, and then you can fill it up with petrol and you'll be getting a total of about 1200 Ks of range. So far today, I've done a bit of a drive in this car across the proving ground just to see what it is like in a mix of different scenarios. Now, obviously, none of these situations necessarily replicate what you might see on Australian roads, but I have to say, I've been pretty impressed with how this vehicle behaves itself in terms of the driving dynamics, the comfort, the body control, and also how it steers. Like, the steering's maybe not perfect, but I think that it does have a level of agility to it that is pretty rewarding, and the ride comfort in particular has impressed me. Now, this particular model is the range extender hybrid, so it's a maybe for Australia officially, and I think that it could be a good choice if you aren't so sure about whether EV life is going to be right for you, because you can still drive it as an EV, and there's about 200 Ks of EV driving range available if you are using it as an EV, but then you've got the petrol engine which will act as a generator to try and keep things going and keep your battery topped up, and in that instance you should have pretty good driving range. And I have to say, I've been really impressed with the way that the whole powertrain behaves itself in different situations. When you are accelerating, when you're just cruising along, it just seems to have a nice refinement to it and a pretty good logic to the way that things are controlled. And if I put my foot down, it does really have a good amount of shove. This is not a slow vehicle by any stretch of the imagination, although it is a little bit heavy. So it might be one of those ones that if it comes to Australia, it could be right for a lot of people, or maybe the EV will be the better bet. Of course, it's got regenerative braking as part of this system to try and recuperate as much energy as possible and send it back to the battery pack. And that's whether you choose the range extender or the EV model. And I have to say, I'm pretty impressed with the brake pedal feel. It does have a pretty responsive feel to the pedal, and that's good because in some other EV style models, the regen braking can interrupt the brake pedal feel. But I'm impressed with this, and I think that it does have a pretty good usability to the controls more generally, although the throttle can be just a little touchy at times. Another thing I've found to be pretty positive is the visibility from the driver's seat. So you've got decent sized mirrors, you've got reasonable view out the front as well, and a very, very good surround view camera system is standard too. But no matter what, the impressions that I've got so far, very positive, I have to say. Obviously, there's a lot more to be revealed about the Deepal S05 in Australia, but I am pretty impressed. Based on my first drive over here in China, this seems like it could be a good choice straight off the bat. But the price might determine whether it will be, and same with the safety systems, because in the previous Deepal, they weren't very good. But tell me what you think about it. How much should it cost? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments section. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and ring the bell. It helps a lot. Thanks. I'll see ya when I see ya.